All right, everyone ready for this? We're going deep on the Tower of Babel.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, this is one that I think a lot of people have heard of, even if they're not, super familiar with all the details.
Right. It's one of those stories that kind of sticks with you.
Yeah. So we're going to look at the story itself, obviously, and then we've got some modern analysis and some thoughts from Answers in Genesis.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So we're really trying to figure out, is this just a story, or is there something more to it? Like something about, I don't know, human nature, language, the way the world works.
I think it's definitely more than just a story.
Okay, so let's start with the story itself.
Right.
Genesis 11. Everyone remembers it, right?
Yeah, the classic Tower of Babel.
So we've got humanity all speaking the same language, and they decide to build this tower.
A tower to reach heaven.
That's the idea, yeah.
Pretty ambitious, right?
Talk about a skyscraper. I mean, what were they thinking?
Well, the text says they wanted to make a name for themselves.
Ah, so it's about more than just reaching heaven physically.
Right. It's like they wanted to leave their mark on the world, create something that would last forever.
A legacy, kind of.
Exactly.
But it's also like a little bit prideful, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like humanity's first attempt at a massive construction project.
Yeah.
And they're already trying to outdo God.
Right. It's like they're saying, we can do this ourselves. We don't need you.
And that's where things go wrong,
Yeah,
right?
God steps in and, well, you know the rest.
Boom. Everyone's speaking different languages, total confusion.
Which is actually where we get the word Babel from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it literally means confusion.
Huh. I never knew that.
And the project falls apart. People scatter all over the earth.
So that's the basic story.
Right.
But Answers in Genesis, they have a really interesting take on it.
Oh, yeah.
They see it as this cautionary tale.
About
Human pride and rebellion against God.
makes sense given the context.
Right. Like God wanted humanity to spread out, fill the earth.
And they were basically saying, no thanks, we'd rather stay here and build our tower.
Exactly. And Answers in Genesis argues that by confusing the languages, God was actually being merciful.
Merciful.
Yeah, because it stopped humanity from uniting under a potentially tyrannical ruler.
I hadn't thought about it like that before.
Right. Like imagine a single global empire led by someone who's, power hungry.
That could have been disastrous.
No kidding.
But even outside of a purely theological interpretation,
Yeah.
the story of Babel has some interesting implications for language itself.
Oh, totally. Like even today, linguists talk about languages branching out from parent languages,
Right.
which is kind of what the Babel account suggests.
That's almost like there's this linguistic echo of the story.
Yeah, in the way languages have actually evolved over time.
But that's where things get a little more complicated.
How so?
Well, the traditional evolutionary model for language development, it has a hard time explaining how all these different language families suddenly appeared.
So it's like a mismatch between the story and what scientists are finding.
It's a puzzle that researchers are still trying to figure out.
So we've got the biblical account, we've got the linguistic analysis.
Right.
We've even got similar stories in other cultures, like this idea of a tower and a loss of language. It pops up all over the place.
It's a pretty universal theme.
But we're still trying to figure out what it all means.
Exactly.
And there were a few questions that came up for me as I was reading through all this.
Like what?
Well, first of all, what did this tower actually look like?
Good question. The Bible doesn't actually describe it.
No. We have all these paintings and stuff, but no real details.
It's left to our imagination.
Then there's this whole question of people groups, did they exist before Babel?
Ah, now that's a tricky one.
Answers in Genesis mentions Genesis 10, which might hint at that, but it's not super clear.
Right, it's open to interpretation.
So was there already diversity before the tower, or did it all come from that moment of linguistic chaos?
Big question.
Yeah, and that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're not just looking at the surface here.
We're not digging deep.
We're trying to get to the bottom of this whole Tower of Babel mystery.
I like it. And it's always fascinated me how different cultures have interpreted this story, over time.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Some just take it literally, oh, that's why we have different languages.
Right.
But others see it more symbolically, it's about ambition,
And how things fall apart.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this ancient story, right?
Yeah.
It speaks to these big questions about humanity and language and all that.
It's pretty deep stuff.
But how does it connect to us today?
That is the question of
in the 21st century, what does it mean?
Well, I think one way to think about it is language is more than just communication, right?
Okay.
It can also be a source of unity,
Oh.
but also division.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think about it,
Yeah.
language can bring people together, but it can also create barriers.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, we see that all the time.
Right.
Misunderstandings, cultural clashes.
Politics.
Oh, yeah, politics for sure.
Mm.
I mean, so much of that comes down to just like different ways of using language.
And different interpretations.
Exactly.
It's like the legacy of Babel is still with us.
In a way, yeah.
This idea that language can connect us, but also divide us.
Yeah, it's like a constant tension.
Right.
Okay, so if we're thinking about Babel as a cautionary tale,
Like a warning sign.
yeah, what can we learn from it about how we use language today?
Well, I think one big takeaway is humility.
Humility.
Yeah, remember the builders of the tower?
Yeah.
They were driven by pride?
Make a name for ourselves.
Exactly. They wanted to be like gods themselves.
But it didn't work out so well.
No, it backfired spectacularly.
So it's like a reminder to check ourselves, right?
Motives.
Yeah, like why are we speaking? Are we trying to build something up or tear something down?
Are we listening to understand or just waiting for our turn to talk?
Oh, those are good questions.
And I think that leads to another important lesson.
What's that?
Empathy and active listening.
Oh, that's a good one.
Think about it. When the people at Babel lost their ability to understand each other,
Yeah.
it created chaos.
Right, they couldn't cooperate anymore.
Exactly. And we see that happen all the time, even today.
Oh, totally. Like family arguments, workplace conflicts.
Online debates.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like every time I get on Twitter, I'm right back at the Tower of Babel.
It's like we're constantly rebuilding that tower of misunderstanding,
Brick by brick.
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, but seriously though, what's the solution?
Well, I don't think it's about everyone speaking the same language, literally.
Like,
The story's about something deeper.
what is that?
It's about understanding.
Understanding.
Yeah, respecting different perspectives.
Okay.
And finding ways to communicate even when we disagree.
So like building bridges instead of walls.
Exactly.
But that's hard.
It is. It takes effort,
It does.
patience,
And a willingness to like actually listen to people you disagree with.
which can be really tough.
I'm kidding.
But the rewards are huge.
Yeah, how so?
Well, when we communicate well, when we understand each other,
Yeah.
we can collaborate.
We can create things together.
Exactly. And we can connect on a human level.
I like that a lot.
It's worth striving for.
There's something else I was thinking about.
What's that?
Remember that part in the narrative retelling
Yeah.
about how the people discovered this new way to build with bricks and mortar?
Oh, yeah, like a technological breakthrough.
Exactly. It was supposed to help them achieve their goals.
But it also kind of backfired.
Yeah, because that innovation, that technology, it kind of contributed to their downfall.
It's like a warning about progress without wisdom.
Right. Like innovation without thinking about the consequences.
That's a really good point, and it makes you think, doesn't it?
Okay.
We live in a world of incredible technology.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But are we always thinking about the potential downsides?
That's a good question.
Are we using these tools to connect, or are we creating new forms of division?
Whoa, that's deep.
It's like we're surrounded by modern-day towers of Babel.
Like what?
Social media, artificial intelligence, all this stuff that can be used for good or for bad.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
In the story of Babel, it reminds us that we can't just blindly embrace progress.
We have to think about the ethics.
Exactly, the potential consequences.
It's a call to be more mindful
More deliberate.
about how we shape the future.
With all these powerful tools we have.
So it's not just about language anymore.
It's about all the ways we connect, all the ways we build our world.
And maybe Babel is telling us to slow down to think things through before we reach too high.
Before we create something we can't control.
Man, this whole Tower of Babel thing is really making me think.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
It is. It's like I'm looking at language differently, technology differently, even just like how I talk to people.
It's amazing how a story this old can still be so relevant.
Totally. And you know what? It's not just about those big global issues either.
What do you mean?
Like, think about our everyday lives.
Okay.
We build our own little towers of Babel all the time, don't we?
Ooh, I like that metaphor.
Right, like with our friends, our families, at work.
Misunderstandings, arguments.
Exactly. Just that inability to see things from the other person's perspective.
It's like a mini Tower of Babel playing out in our own lives.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating.
It is. It's like we're speaking different languages even when we're using the same words.
Oh my gosh, that's so true, especially online.
Social media is like a breeding ground for Babel moments.
I'm kidding. It's like everyone's talking past each other.
And just like in the original story, it leads to conflict division.
Yeah, and we can't get anything done.
We're stuck.
So what do we do? Like, is there a way to break out of this Babel cycle?
Well, I don't think it's about everyone literally speaking the same language.
Right. They wouldn't solve everything.
The story's pointing to something deeper.
What's that?
It's about understanding.
Understanding each other?
Yeah, respecting different viewpoints and finding ways to communicate even when we disagree.
That's tough, though.
It is, but it's essential.
So how do we do it? How do we build those bridges instead of the walls?
Well, it starts with us individually,
Okay.
being more mindful of our own language.
Like thinking before we speak.
Exactly, and really listening to understand, not just to respond.
Active listeners.
That's the key, and being willing to find common ground even when it's hard.
So it's not about agreeing on everything.
Not necessarily. It's about respecting each other's humanity, even amidst our differences.
That's powerful. I like that.
And, it's not easy. It takes effort. It takes practice. But the rewards are worth it.
What are the rewards?
Well, when we can truly communicate, when we can understand each other,
Yeah.
we can collaborate, we can solve problems together, we can build something beautiful.
It's like we're undoing the curse of Babel.
In a way, yeah, we're choosing to connect instead of divide.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
I'm glad you found it valuable.
I really did. It's like I'm seeing the world differently now.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, I hope you're feeling the same way.
We hope this has given you some food for thought.
Because ultimately the choice is ours, right?
It is. We can either perpetuate the legacy of Babel or we can create something new.
A world where communication brings us together instead of tearing us apart.
A world where we understand each other a little bit better.
That's a world I want to live in.
Me too.
So let's go build it.